I lost my mind. There was something so pleasant about that place. Even your emotions have an echo in so much space.
Hi everyone, and welcome to Resilience Porn, our interview series. And I am so privileged and grateful for Tracey, who's agreed to talk to us today about resilience and what her journey and just it's a mind-blowing journey. She'll tell you herself. I actually, you know how the world is just people that come into your life. Just be grateful for every single person, regardless of what circumstance it is. I met Tracey through Jody Wilmer, who mentored me through an Airbnb process. Yeah, see that. And at the time, I had an Airbnb in Phillip Island. And Tracey was looking for a place to hang out for a week or two in order to sort of, you will hear why, and just to hang out for a week, just to be by herself and just recharge, rejuvenate. And Jody approached me, a few people, and I said, yes, I would love to host Tracey in my home. And that's what we did. And from her post, I saw she had a most wonderful time. But in that process, we became friends, but mainly through Facebook. We've spoken once or twice, but I'm so inspired by her and what she stands for that I approached her, hand on my heart, going, it would be lovely to chat to you. So here's Tracey, and again, thank you very much for joining us. So Tracey, what is resilience to you? This is how we always start.
Yeah, it's funny because when you asked me to do the interview, I was thinking about the word resilience, and I don't really like the word. I feel I am resilient, but I also, I was looking up the definition, and it really talks about being elastic, being returning to the original shape, your ability to bounce back. But the thing I don't like is the bouncing back. Because a lot of the time, I think we think, well, that person's resilient, but we don't necessarily bounce back to what was there before. Mm-hmm. And, and I've been like, just really even this morning too, thinking about that, because, it's like, this is a weird analogy, but, like pajama bottoms, and you've got elastic in them.
Yep.
And if they're resilient, if they do what they're meant to do, if they're resilient, they, you wear them, the elastics, it just brings your pajama bottoms back into place and you wear them. And then sometimes the elastic goes in them and they won't go back to shape, and they'll just fall down to your ankles, they'll just fall off, right? And I was like, well, and also, you can put on weight and they can be too tight, and you can lose weight and they can, they can be too loose anyway. But I was just thinking about, this analogy of pajama bottoms and resilience, and thinking, well, I don't want to be just resilient. I want to go beyond resilience. And I think I've learnt to go beyond it. And I've learnt a lot of that from being with the Masai for 15 years in Tanzania. So, when I look at them, I think there's huge resilience, but it's beyond again.
Right.
So, yeah. So I feel that it needs to be a bigger conversation, and we need to break out of the resilience mentality.
Okay, that's awesome. I love it. Awesome, great. So we're expanding beyond this, and this is what I love about different people and what you're sitting with. And so yeah, please explain. What do you see that to expand beyond, what were the Masai people, so what did they have that you felt was beyond what our little brains on what resilience is?
Well, I mean, I've been looking at different things like, resilience, and then I looked at, endurance.
Endurance, yep.
It's another word, and it's another word that to me is a bit negative. And when you look up the, the definition that I got was, to withstand a difficult process without giving way. And that doesn't imply surrender.
No.
Endurance implies sort of fighting to stay there, like trying to keep your pajama bottoms up when the elastic just wants to give way. It's like, it's not going with the flow of life. And so, when I look at this as well, yes, the Masai are resilient. Yes, they endure. There's a lot of challenges. But then I looked at, what is beyond this? And then it's, okay, there's another thing, renewal. Is this about renewal? And if you look at renewal, it's, it doesn't change a lot, but it just becomes something that's renewed, but it still exists, the core exists. And then I looked again and thought, well, you know what? It's about transformation. That's the one I ended up with. And I've transformed in the Masai. I've watched them for 15 years and they're transforming as well. And transformation to me isn't something that just happens and you're transformed. Transformation, it's a process and it's a continual process. We don't stop transforming. We can resist or we can surrender, but change is inevitable. And I think part of it is the COVID-19 thing that's happening right now. There's a lot of people saying, well, we shouldn't go back to the normal. And the thing is, resilience would have us go back to the normal. So resilience would get us through this social isolation. It'd get us through, in Australia, for example, it'd get us through that. And then we'd be, to be resilient, we'd cope with the isolation, we'd cope with everything that comes with that. And then we'd come back to what was before, because that is what resilience means. It'll come back into shape again. It'll come back to what's normal. And people are calling out, we don't want it to be back to normal because normal wasn't working for a lot of people.
Yes.
And, but again, I think, well, it's beyond normal. Why do we, when I looked up transformation, okay, it's a change, a complete change in form, nature, and appearance to something new. So that to me is what life is about. And I've watched a whole generation of Masai. When you think about it, the Masai girls often marry 14, 15 years old or even younger. And I've been involved with the Masai for 15 years intimately. And I've been living over there in Tanzania for the last 10 years. And I'm within the community. I'm not sort of from the outside. I don't just pop over from Australia. I literally am based in Tanzania and I pop back to Australia, except now where I'm actually stuck in Australia. I can't leave.
I want to go back.
It's quite strange actually to have that freedom taken away. But I've seen transformation of Masai, and I mean individuals and as a tribe. And part of it is because they do surrender to the changes. And I'm not saying the changes are good or bad that are happening, but they move with the times. And for me, some of that's terrible personally, because I think, oh my gosh, they're losing their culture, and they're losing a lot of their culture because they're being educated. So part of that is around, well, is it better to be educated and then obviously lose, which is what's happening, lose the culture, lose the ones that are educated, they don't want to do things the old way anymore. They want to be modern. And that's what's happening. But with the transformation, a lot of it's imposed on them. Their way of life has had to transform.
Yep.
They were, they're traditionally nomadic pastoralists. And that was their lives. They would literally, okay, we need, the rains have moved. We need to follow the rains. So we have pasture land. So we have water for our livestock. And we will do that by leaving our mud hut behind, and we'll roll up our cow skin that we lie on to sleep, and we'll just take our main pots and we'll just all as a family go to the next location. And because kids are being educated, and of course the government in Tanzania has said every child should be at school, they're staying in one place now as well, so the children can go to school. So the animals will be taken elsewhere, and there'll be the males, the young boys will take the smaller cow, the goats and the sheep, and there's usually someone older that looks after the cows, but then they'll take them and then they'll still have that nomadic lifestyle, but they won't be able to go as far anymore. They won't be able to go where they used to go, because a lot of that land's now been allocated as farmland. It's been registered. The government hasn't really acknowledged a lot of the tribal land ownership because they have their own legal system. So that's all changing too. So, how do the Masai continue when their lifestyle is completely changing, partly because of loss of land, partly because of the education of their children. Part of the children don't necessarily want to be traditional Masai anymore. But also to go to school, they have to be in one spot, at least so the mothers, the wives of the men, can be still in the one place. So, you know, I've been observing the Masai and living with them for all these years, and it cannot not affect me. You know what I mean? I am always impacted by what I'm seeing, and also because, you know, as an observer, you can't be you're never neutral, and you will be a catalyst for change as well. You can't just be there and watching people and being embedded in their community and not also change. And so that's what the other thing too is, you know, I've come in going, well, the Masai need to adapt. They acknowledge they need to adapt. I've had many conversations with elderly Masai men, you know, about this need to change with the times, their need to no longer rely on just their livestock. And a lot of that's drought too. You know, the reason I started my charity, Testigo Africa, was because there was a bad drought and there was no water and they lost 95% of their livestock. So that's happened too. But when I talk to these old men, and like, we need the change. And I thought, well, I can bring in permaculture and teach these pastoralists to be agro-pastoralists, to shift their whole being. And this is what I mean about transformation. It's a whole new way of being. It's a whole new way of being self-sufficient, because they were self-sufficient before, but when their livestock are decimated, they're no longer self-sufficient. They can no longer live off the meat and the milk products and everything. So I may be going off topic slightly, but this is sort of how I see this beyond resilience with the Masai, because they're adapting, they're changing. Look, they're having to, and I think as human beings, we can resist a lot. We can try not to go with change that's being forced on us, but eventually it's a much easier ride to surrender and go with it. And I think that's one of the things I've learned. And I think too, with Tanzanians generally, they've got a much more healthy attitude of living day-to-day, living in the moment. You know, and before we started this interview, we were talking about meditation and meditation practices. And I think a lot of us meditate because it brings us back to the present moment, to our breath, to literally being in that moment, or the gap between your breath.
Yeah.
And a lot of Tanzanians, their life is lived literally in the present all the time. Their life is one big meditation, basically. So, you know, and I've learned a lot just by being there and watching their faith, watching their belief that things that you know happen are meant to be. That yeah, and there's a lot of hardship, and especially now with the COVID-19 going through Tanzania, I know I'm watching all of that happen as well. And because they're a resilient community, because it's a resilient country, they will come through, and that's inevitable. As human beings, we will come through. There will be people that have died, of course, and people, you know, that happens, and people's livelihoods, but they will come through, like we all will. But they will also come through in a way that, you know, is, I don't know, quite powerful, because they know change, they know uncertainty a lot more than we probably do.
Yes. Yeah. And to be able to flow with that uncertainty, the unknown, and just go, okay, this is what we're going to do. But the best thing to do is to be fully present right now, because I am completely sure of that. I'm completely sure that if I'm totally present and doing what I'm doing, and I'm mindful about that, that's the thing. And that keeps me on track, and that helps me deal with the unknown, because I don't need to do it. I don't need to know that I know what's in front of me. So
exactly. And I think too, you know, being fully present and, you know, is not being naive and not denying things and not being oblivious. You know, what I'm really impressed about with Tanzanians is their awareness of what's happening globally. They are all on the radio. You know, the Masai in the most remote villages can access radio, and it may be radio that's broadcast in Ma, in the Masai language, which a lot of them are, and it may be in Swahili, it may be BBC in English, or BBC Swahili, but they will access the radio, and it can be on just from their mobile phones, or they may have one of the old, radios we used to carry around with the handle. But they're all up on the global news, and they always know what's happening. The number of people in Tanzania that contacted me about the bushfires when they were happening in Australia. And now too, they're following this COVID-19. They are up on all the different countries in Africa. They're up on all the countries throughout the world. And I think in a way that Australians often aren't. We're very insular at times here. And everyone's concerned about, their livelihood. And I understand that. But I think in Tanzania, they're very global. So that being in the present is also being fully informed, and they know what's been happening elsewhere. They know what the countries elsewhere have done, decisions that have been made about how to deal with, like COVID-19, and they've educated themselves as well. So this is quite interesting. So being in the present doesn't mean, well, I'll just be in my own little cocoon and I'll just think, how can I eat today? Their being in the present is to be completely aware of what's happening globally, even though probably 99% of them will never be able to afford to travel beyond their own borders.
Right. Wow. Yeah, that's I like that. Yeah, a lot of people do struggle with that concept of being present, and it's not just like, as you said, your bubble, but it's about everyone else, our current global community, our current earth, so to speak. And yeah, that's so when they come up, when it becomes something that's really like another challenge that comes up, or like, when you're hearing all these things about what's happening in other countries with COVID, and it could be anything, bushfires, is there any emotion attached to it? Like, some people get angry. What does that community do? Or do they take that information and go, okay, this is what's happening, and then don't attach any sort of emotion to it? They just deal with what they've got in front of them, and then go with whatever is flowing from that?
I think it depends on the individual. I mean, I have a lot of Masai friends who are contacting me through this period. And some of them are getting scared now because the virus is suddenly, the curve is, we're suddenly on the curve in Tanzania. So some of them have reacted, emotionally. And of course, there's all people reacting to the government decisions about, what Tanzania hasn't locked down. And the government's been quite specific about the fact they can't, because more people would die of starvation than would ever die of the virus, the pandemic.
Yeah.
So, there's reactions. It's not like people have just, settled, or they're not. There's definitely emotion in that. But certainly, they understand suffering, and they understand hunger. They understand physical things that we probably have less awareness of, because we have access to great healthcare, and we don't like being in pain, but they pretty much, they'll have their natural childbirth. They won't, it's changing now, but traditionally the Masai, they have Masai midwives, they circumcise the boys without any anesthetic, without anything. They know how to be strong physically as well. There's still diseases that for us don't even come into our mind anymore. But, they're grappling with malaria, they're grappling with typhoid, cholera, hepatitis. There's a lot, and a lot haven't been immunized in any way. And so that, theirs is a very physical existence as well. So, they're very grounded. And so those emotions that they may have, usually a lot of empathy, a lot of, people will say to me, I'm so sorry to hear what's happening in Australia, and in Swahili, pole sana means we're very sorry. And everyone will say pole sana for Australia, the bushfires, pole sana for what's happening. There's a very big community spirit already, because it's not about bringing the community together now because of what's happening with COVID-19 or whatever, or with a drought that happened a few years ago. The community already has to come together. If someone's livelihood falls apart for whatever reason, if they're sick or they've had an accident or something, the community will come around and they will support them. Their family will. If they have no family, the community will.
Yep.
Because the government doesn't. They don't have the safety net that we have.
Yep.
So, I guess it's going back again to resilience, but it's, they're already very, what's the word? Well established in terms of resilience on a community level, on an individual level.
Right. Well, these are, incredible observations, and, sort of the distillation of this for us, because often we're totally lost in our nice comfortable world here. We forget that there's so many other cultures that we could learn from, and then from there go and sort of the words transformation. That's just beautiful, Tracey, and that would not have come from you just observing the people you serve and the people you love, the Tanzanian and Masai community, and and the presence and community. Again, it just two more words that are just bring the whole essence of what this is all about, which is I really love it. So I would love to spend a little bit more time on Testigo, because I think I would love people to hear about what this incredible I guess nonprofit, I would say, organization does. This is all set up by Tracey, her vision, I think we should hear about this, and I'll put the website down in the comment section after this interview, because go have a look and just and see if you could support them. I'm coming from my heart, Trace. It's not us this, because but I have seen it and it's amazing. So I'll just keep quiet and get Tracey to talk about Testigo.
I set it up 10 years ago. So Testigo Africa was really in response to Masai friends that I'd met asking for help with the water project. And so, it was like, well, how do I even start? But, I did try to get some of the big charities to take it on, but no one did. And it ended up one of those things that you think, well, who's going to do it?
Yep.
Why not me? Why don't I just do it? And so that's what I did. And I set up a charity so that I could raise funds to get this water project done. So that's the beginning. And I have a big corporate career behind me. I'm actually I'm an accountant, I'm a lawyer. I've done lots of big jobs, and I've worked in, London for many years, Hong Kong, Australia, New York, lots of different places. And, but I was like, well, I'll set it up, do the water project. And then, I've done what they asked me to do to help them with the water project. But the thing is, in that time that I did the water project, and there's a whole story around that, and I am writing the book, so it will be out there at some point. I was watching the women suffer so much, the Masai women, in their lifestyle, when, the drought happened, and just day to day, and having to go and, collect wood to have their fires to cook, and then having to try, if they can't sell beaded jewelry, how did they make money? And if their livestock had died, they had no milk to even sell or drink. I watched the suffering. And then really, my brother was into, and still is, into permaculture. And of course, permaculture was born in Australia, in Tasmania. It came out of Tassie, but, created for desert-like conditions where there's, a lack of water, or where there's drought conditions. And my brother had always been sending me, green in the desert YouTube videos and things like that. And I just had, I wish I could remember exactly the moment, but I had like an epiphany where I was like, well, that would work really well with the Masai. Teaching the women how to grow their own vegetables, because that keeps that self-sufficiency within them. And to me, when I weighed up, well, that is changing their culture, because they're going to have to learn to grow for the first time. So that is a shift. But at the same time, learning to grow means also being self-sufficient again, because they always did look after themselves. They didn't need to rely on anyone else to eat and survive. So that, so then I, at the time I had a relationship with Testigo and a bigger not-for-profit in Sydney, and they had access to Australian aid money, AusAid money at the time. And so I asked them, could I have a grant to do a pilot project, to do a pilot permaculture project in a Masai village? And they said yes. So I did that first pilot back in 2012. I also did a permaculture design certificate in Arusha, which is the main safari capital in Tanzania. And then, you know, we did this pilot and we trained over 100 Masai, mainly women, and it went amazingly well. And that was the beginning. And at that point, you know, again, I'd missed the chance to I'll go back to corporate because I've done the water project, because now I was like, well, now I found something that can help. Again, transformation. You know, it can help really shift their lives, and a quantum shift, not just, oh, well, I'll give them some more cows and goats and livestock so they've got more of what they already do. It was something completely different, something out of the box. And I didn't just, you know, take, you know, a package and said, this is how we're going to do it. This is how permaculture works, and this is how it will apply to you. I was already embedded in the community for a number of years before I started that. And my best friend, Namyak, you know, she's a Masai woman living in Longido village. And, you know, they'd given me land. I was living with them. I spent 5 years living in a mud hut next to my best friend. And so I wasn't imposing anything on them. I was saying, how can we do, you know, yes, I brought up the idea, but then it was like, let them learn. The very first training we did with that AusAid money, we had a trainer who was a Tanzanian man who did have a horticultural background and degree, and he'd been working for an American NGO, an American charity, and he knew about permaculture. After him, the only trainers we've ever used are the people that we've trained. So it's become a train the trainer. So all my trainers are Masai women pretty much, and a few men in there as well, because we train Masai men as well. But, you know, they on train as well. So I use trainers to go into new places, and that's expanded to schools now. So we've trained 38 Masai sub-villages, and we've trained 5 schools, you know, primary and secondary government schools. And so we have big community gardens within the schools now, and then they're eating greens as well. So, you know, and I've used the Masai women that we trained. And these women, remember, they're illiterate. Most of the women that I've trained haven't been to school. They can't read or write. It's not like I can hand them notes or do anything very too technical in that sense. But they're Masai, it's an oral tradition. And so training and orally imparting this knowledge has worked really well. So that's what I've been doing now. And 15 years, more than 15 years now that I've been involved with Tanzania and yeah, helping the Masai with their transformation, facilitating.
Yep. And with that, you know, I've again, you know, as I said in the beginning, I've watched your journey, and I can imagine there were quite a few ups and downs for you.
Yes.
And so what kept you going, Tracey? What you know, what kept you on track, and you know, to do what you do?
Oh, I'm feeling emotional now because I'm just knowing that everything I'm doing, I'm meant to be doing. There's some other level. You know, it's not a mind decision to leave a corporate career and start a charity. There's, you know, there was great passion. There's a great sense of purpose. You know, like what gets me up in the morning is knowing that everything I do every day is helping other people.
Wow.
It's giving them the means, the tools, the ability to change their lives.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and really, like when I reflect back on my corporate career, which I was in for over 20 years, and I loved it and I was very successful. And, you know, and I had everything that went with that. I lived, you know, in all these amazing cities around the world. I traveled extensively. I had great income, you know, and then I did complete opposite, and I've never been happier. And it's because this other level of, you know, I don't know. Yeah. It's that, you know, when people talk about their soul purpose.
Yes.
And what they're meant to be doing, I am one of the very, very lucky people who found it. And it wasn't like I just went, oh my God, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to hang up with the Masai. I'm going to start a charity. I never wanted to start a charity when I grew up. It was not on my list of things, you know?
Yep.
And but it happened, and I allowed it to happen. You know, I could have slammed the door shut. And in fact, I ran away a few times from the door because I was like, no, my life's going to change too much. No, surely I can go back to corporate. But I changed too much. And this, again, it's that transformation. I transformed completely. But I transformed from someone who was very ambitious, someone who's very successful in a corporate career, who was also very unhappy. I was literally living on the 46th floor of an apartment building in Hong Kong, in Kennedy Town, right on the harbour, with this amazing views, working for a very big New York law firm, global firm. And I'd look out the window wishing I had the guts to jump. And I couldn't understand myself. Why aren't I happy? I have everything. You know, I travel business class, I stay in 5-star hotels, I've got great income. What's wrong with me? And, you know, and it was that crisis, that sort of, well, why can't I be happy? You know, I paid for a life coach, make me happy, make me enjoy my job, make me enjoy my career, because I don't want to give it up. And that's where I came from. And there's a whole big story around that, but that's where I came from. And yes, you know, it wasn't at that point, Hong Kong, that I found this purpose. And it wasn't like I was actively saying, well, where is my purpose? I didn't even think about purpose. But when this came, it was like, it was just meant to be. There's some level of inevitability. And I did not easily surrender. And it wasn't a smooth, oh yeah, I'll just move into this. It was like resistance. No, maybe I'll go back to corporate again. Or maybe I'll, you know, like, well, who am I? Am I this person? Because I was always defined by, I'm a lawyer with, you know, beautifully cut hair and makeup and my Armani suits. And then, you know, then I've been doing the NGO, and who am I now? You know, how do I cut my hair? Because who am I? And I've been through all this self-identity thing. But at the end of the day, you know, talk about resilience, if you want to use that word, you know, 15 years involved with Tanzania, and I have had massive challenges, and I've been brought to my knees many times. And there have been times when I've just gone, why has this happened? Why am I doing this? And then, you know, I brush myself off and I stand up and I know why. And it's something beyond me. And that's the magic of being, you know, living your purpose and being in that space. And I am so blessed. I mean, I'm seriously blessed. I have had this, can you imagine the privilege of being embraced by the Masai community? You know, I'm one of them. I'm not trying to be Masai, but I'm a member of their community. I've been running my NGO from the inside out. I've been doing it from within the community. And it's been the most amazing privilege to be so embedded in this amazing tribe, you know, and I've learned so much about myself, about them, about the world in general. So that's why I do it.
You're on teary now, darling. I'm about to cry myself. I was like,
oh, okay.
Yeah. No, that's absolutely beautiful. And you know, I've always said to everybody, this interview series touches just one person. That's all I really, you know, that's a big bonus for me. But today, I think, you know, I've really succeeded because, you know, I knew it was the right decision to ask you, and my heart's really opened up. I was having a weird morning this morning, but now talking to you, it's really opened my heart up and saying with so much gratitude and love. So, thank you, Tracey. Yeah, I'll leave it there for now, and because it's such a beautiful space now. And yes, I'll put the website down. Have a look, guys. And if it's something that, you know, that moves you, then there's various ways to help such a beautiful cause out. So thank you, Tracey, and much love to you.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys, for watching.